here's Lisa Edwards Burrs, and we had a slight miscommunication, but I'm so grateful that she's taking the time to be here with me.
Well, I'm grateful you're still here.
Oh no, well, who goes anywhere these days, right?
Right,
always here. Anyway, okay, so let me read a little bit of your bio. A soprano of crystalline beauty, I can attest to that. Studied at Virginia Commonwealth University and the Catholic University of America in Washington, D.C. She has a DMA, Dr. Burrs, Edwards Burrs, rather. Yeah. And her operatic roles include Athena in The Furies, Harriet Tubman, and she was in Vanquis and Dialogue of the Carmelites, a wide variety of roles from African-American composers to the so-called standard rep, which should include African-American composers, but we'll talk about that. She was also an artistic ambassador for the United States, touring several countries in South America for 5 weeks, doing concerts, lectures, and master classes. She was voted Outstanding Vocalist of the Year for Excellence in Arts by Richmond Magazine. I'm just trying to skim through because, like everybody else, you have a long bio. Performed at St. Patrick's Cathedral in New York and also the Schomburg Center. And you have a soft spot for works by African-American composers. Let's see. You were in the Philadelphia premiere of Leslie Adams Blake and Cleopatra in the world premiere of Egypt's Nights by composer Leslie Burrs, who is your brother-in-law. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Yes. I can remember the occasional thing. Anyway, so she performs and gives master classes, and I'm going to play a little bit of Sunshine and Shadows, which is an opera by composer Stephen Allen. She teaches at Virginia State University in Petersburg, Virginia.
No, actually at Longwood University.
Oh. Okay, yeah. So this is an old bio, in other words.
Must be, sorry, yeah.
And that's okay.
Yeah, but I was there for a long time.
Okay, all right.
And about 6 years ago, went to Longwood, yeah.
Okay, so this is old. Yeah. Oh, well, that's okay. You were there a long time. That's worthy of mention.
That's right. Oh, for sure.
Oh, yeah, yeah. So, so first of all, I guess I'll cover the bio stuff of how you ended up in this crazy profession.
You know, I have to give credit to my high school music teacher, actually. Her name was Kay Cameron, and she actually ended up being director of music theater for the Kennedy Center for a very long time. I'm not sure she still is or not. She may have retired, but she was wonderful. And a lot of other great music mentors, if you will, throughout my life. But I always loved music. I had a grandmother who actually went to Hampton Institute and was there when Nathaniel Dett was the choir director.
Oh, wow.
So, you know, and Dorothy Maynor was also there. You know, she would talk about them being the two shortest ones in the choir. My grandmother was 4'11", and they would be in the semicircle. And Miss Maynor would be on the opposite side on the end because she was short, and my grandmother as well. And in addition to that, William Dawson's sister, her name was Odessa Randolph, lived here in Richmond, where I live, and she was my piano teacher.
Oh, wow.
Had no idea. Mr. Dawson would come every summer from Tuskegee and would spend a couple of weeks, he and his family, with his sister. And she would still teach lessons, and he'd be in there reading the newspaper. You'd kind of go to the back to the piano room, and I'd say, "Hi, how are you?" You know, I had no idea, right? 6, 7 years old.
Oh, yeah. I
think back to these memories and just go, I had no idea that, you know, that I was in the presence of such greatness.
Yeah.
And just other really good, you know, I played the harp. I was one of the first harp students in Richmond Public Schools, which of course was segregated back then. My teacher, Ann Walker, who was just the general music teacher, wanted to have harps. And so she petitioned the school system. They bought 3 troubadour harps, and I was one of the 3 to study. So all the way through, you know, I loved music and I excelled at it. And that's kind of how I ended up. I don't think I could picture myself doing anything else.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And then I went to VCU, and my high school teacher, she had majored at UNCG, University of North Carolina at Greensboro, in piano and conducting.
Mm-hmm.
So she'd done her performance, her bachelor's and her master's in those. And I didn't think I played well enough because, I mean, she was a beast. You know, and I'm like, I can't play.
Mm-hmm.
She said, "Oh, no, you play very well.
Mm-hmm.
And you can do that." And so there we go.
But you're a singer.
Yes.
So how did you end up a singer?
Well, because I always sang.
Okay.
You know, I always did that. And I did accompany one of the choirs. But I mean, I gave up piano playing, I guess, at formal lessons at about 12.
Oh, okay.
But I played about 6 years.
Okay.
And so I still kept it up, and I always sang, and I was known kind of for being a good reader, had a good ear, which I didn't know until I got to VCU. You just kind of do what you do.
Yeah, exactly.
And, yeah. So those were probably the main ones that just really forged that path ahead.
Okay. And so, like, through your education, I guess you were, you know, obviously exposed to these, as you said, even though you didn't know William Dawson's. But I mean, were you always committed to the idea of African American literature, or was that something that came later on?
You know, it's interesting because I think back then, and I'm older than you are, you had places.
Probably not by much.
Well, maybe, I don't know. But at university, you know, you had Undine Moore. I mean, I grew up with Undine Moore being in my grandparents' church. I mean, I would see her all the time.
Yeah.
And so they were doing Daniel, Servant of the Lord, and all of her spirituals and arrangements. And, you know, there was a different, I guess, a different focus because I don't know, it was just a part of what we did. You celebrated Black composers and you did those things. Most, you know, church and spirituals, all of that stuff was a major part. You know, there was no gospel music going on at Gilfield Baptist Church. Okay. It was considered, I guess, a high Baptist church or something, but you had all of the professors from Virginia State who were also a part of the congregation. So you'd have the brass players, the students would come over and you'd have fanfares and you'd have strings. Dr. Thomas Bridge, who played with the Richmond Symphony back then, was the strings professor. And they had an orchestra at Virginia State. So it was a lot going on. And of course, Mrs. Moore, later Dr. Moore, taught there for 42 years, I believe, taught theory. And so there's a long legacy of fine music and excellence that went on there. So when I decided I was at VCU and there were fewer, you know, we were in the minority, African-American students. I made it I became interested, first of all, with Dean Patterson's book, of course. I think that was 72 or 76, one of the two. The what is it? Oh, I'm going to forget the exact title. But
collection of African-American art songs.
Yes. And I was astounded. I thought, wow, this is great. Didn't know art songs. Of course, we knew anthems and knew spirituals. I knew less about the art songs. And also, that was a focal point when I decided, oh, yeah, we certainly want to do this. And also Joe Kennedy, the jazz violinist, taught, and he also played in the Richmond Symphony back then, along with people like Antoinette Handy, who was a professor, also a flute professor at Virginia State, also played in the symphony. I took the music of Black Americans at VCU, and he played the Negro Folk Symphony. Thought, oh my gosh. You know,
I mean, the Richmond Symphony was relatively integrated. I mean,
isn't
compared
that something?
Because it sounds like, I mean, that sounds like more Black people in a symphony orchestra than most orchestras now, honestly.
I know. And I tell my daughter, of course, Naima, you've met her, and she's a wonderful violinist. And there's one member. There are two now, I think.
Yeah.
Russell Wilson, who's the piano, has the piano position and has had it for over 30 years.
Oh, really?
But no, there were about 5 or 6 members back then.
Interesting.
So I grew up, and I guess, I don't know, you know, when they left or retired or whatever. I don't.
Did they? I don't know how well you knew them, or if they would even talk about such things in, you know, faculty student things. But I mean, did they feel like they were accepted as everybody else, like with their colleagues?
So.
Okay.
I think so. Yes. I think looking back, I don't know that they felt or knew that they were breaking barriers.
Okay.
Honestly, and I was too young to, as you say, have, those conversations, but
Yeah.
Virginia State had such a good department.
Mm-hmm.
It was, I don't know, I guess they would expect to be playing in an orchestra. And
Yeah.
so they were.
But I mean, the fact they expected it doesn't mean that someone would let them do
True.
it.
True. Yeah, exactly.
So,
but it wasn't, I don't think it was particularly unusual. We
okay.
would expect to see them, and there they were.
Wow.
So growing up and seeing yourself in the orchestra, that wasn't an issue, as we talk about it all the time now, of course.
Wow.
People don't see themselves up on the stage, but
there they were.
We always did. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, obviously, at this stage of things, like the way things are going, I mean, I find myself thinking about just how ludicrous these things are. Like, just the fact that it would occur to me that, wow, they were really wonderful musicians, but somebody actually let them play in an orchestra, with a bunch of white people. I mean, like, I mean, every once in a while, it just really boggles my brain completely, otherwise than that, it's just this thing in the background that you kind of, you were born into. And so, or you don't realize it obviously when you're born, but it's just,
it's a learned response.
Yeah.
It's our learned response because you don't expect it. It is ludicrous.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I was, because what I come to is like, if people are so inferior, you don't have to hold them down. Do you know what I mean? Like, if you're really not good at stuff, you will not be able to do it. You will not rise. So why all the effort to hold us down? Like what?
Good point.
Yeah. So, I guess I'll segue into, I was going to wait to do the mother talk, but, everybody else I've been talking to has no kids. And so, yeah. We do. We definitely do. And so, I can't say I had the specific, the talk. Or that I got the talk when I was growing up. I grew up in a small town in Canada, and we were very much in the minority. And, the N-word was something I heard in elementary school. So it wasn't like there was a big, like, oh, I got to tell you about how people feel. It's like, oh, there it is right in my face. And I'm 6 years old. Okay. What? But how have you experienced that idea? No matter how old your kids are, you still worry about your kids,
Yeah. So again, growing up here in Richmond, which you all are seeing on the news with all the statues and everything on Monument Avenue, I'm sure.
Yeah.
We were segregated. The schools were, until desegregation happened when I was about 12, 1972, 73, 72. And so we were fine. You just, again, it's very interesting how we, as African Americans, how we functioned in our society, in our culture. Excellence was expected. It was a large community. You did all of the cultural things. We made sure. I was in Jack and Jill, which was an organization that, the moms, it was a mother's organization, I believe, started by some moms in Philadelphia. But we took ballet lessons. We did all of the cultural activities. We simply did them by ourselves. And so you weren't lacking anything because your parents made sure that you were, first of all, out of harm's way, but also you were getting the benefit of education and all of the fine things that were supposed to make us well-rounded citizens. No one could say that you weren't good enough because you were getting all the same things. And so with regard to the kids, of course, my kids came up where things were. Desegregation had occurred. And yes, I had to have that conversation. And I do think we didn't have the conversation with our parents because I think for some reason we've been immune to that, or I don't want to say immune, like it didn't happen. But it's really the boys that needed to watch it. They were the ones driving. You give that talk about if you ever get stopped, make sure your hands are on the steering wheel. Make sure you don't talk back. Make sure you were, all of that stuff. Mm. Don't argue. Don't, because you know that things could escalate and be something else. Mm. And so I have a son who will be 38 in December. Had that conversation with him, right? Mm. And I have one that's going to be 24 in August, and had the same conversation with him, and it just doesn't change. I didn't really have to have it with my daughter. She's in between.
Although, I mean, this whole say her name thing. Yes. But so did you feel though, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I know there's this stratification that happens, like, I mean, do you feel like now your attitude about like, okay, don't do this, don't do that, or if you're in a certain segment of society, you'll be okay kind of thing, that I think people have had this idea, well, if I'm educated and if I carry myself in a certain way, people will look at me differently. But yeah. Because I mean, I didn't grow up in a place where we didn't really split into, because I know all humans like to stratify, honestly. Yes. It's a thing we do. And if you aren't, if you're like me, blessed to have, like my dad was a dentist, and you grow up with certain advantages because, I had music lessons and ballet briefly, although that was not my thing at all. And then,
like a ballerina.
Oh, people used to think I was I don't know why.
Like a dancer.
People used to say that at Juilliard, and I'm like, come on, you guys can see actual dancers. Come on, no, definitely not. No. But I mean, the whole, I mean, I guess we are all definitely in it together. If we didn't think we were in it together. I find myself thinking thoughts and expressing things with language that I would not have in the past, because it just felt like it was, not the way that I was trained. It's still not the way I was trained. Hi, Mom. But I mean, there's just like, I don't know. Do you feel like there's a shift, that this is different, or it's just more in everybody's face than it was in the day? Or
I think it's different. I do. Yeah. And I have a friend who said to me the other day, so she's white, and she had a friend who's white who works in an office that has, quite a few African Americans. And she said that they were commenting or looking at her generation as if probably our generation, I don't know how old she is, but as if they did nothing, like things haven't changed. I mean, we hear that. You think things have changed, and then you realize how much they are the same. What she said was that our generation made it so that this generation grew up in a culture where it was shared by so many different people. It was so much more diverse than the one we grew up in. So therefore, this is particularly appalling to them. Right? Not the death. I mean, that would have been appalling in any case.
Yeah.
But just that, that acceptance constantly. They don't have any of that. I mean, this is ridiculous to them. And so they don't have all of that. That was what our generation contributed to the movement. And I thought that was an interesting perspective. I never thought about that. That everything happens kind of in its time. It's just taking too long. But I do think that they're much less patient, because they do see that, and we see it as well. You can't go jogging. I think I posted that on Facebook one day. It was a whole list of things that you can't do. It's like, oh yeah, well, we can go jogging. Oh no, cross that off. Oh yeah, we can go for a ride. Oh yeah, no. I mean, it's all of those things, and it becomes ridiculous.
Yeah. Well, it was, I mean, obviously it was always, one of my friends was saying that in fact, I interviewed her a while ago, that she thinks actually this is almost worse because these people are openly, they're not even wearing hoods. They're not even pretending that this isn't what they're planning, is to try to eliminate us in any way possible. I mean, I was thinking about the whole, over incarceration, and then you have COVID sweeping through the prisons and no one's really doing anything about it. And then, you know, trying to make sure that we can't vote, trying to just the whole thing is, and it's not even subtle. It's just, you know, like, I mean, there are things that I try in a sense, you know, I'll share stories with my sisters and I don't share with my daughter. Not that she doesn't find these things out, you know, I mean, she's 23. It's not like she, you know, is completely, yeah, she is. Yeah.
I realized she was more my son's age. Okay.
Oh, your son's 24 though.
He'll be in August.
Yeah. Yeah. So
in August. So same age.
23. Yeah. Basically the same age. Yeah. So, you know, but just this whole notion of, like, I don't know how do you explain it? I mean, like, how you can't protect them from the realities. I mean, other than this, you just, you know, keep doing what you do to the best of your ability and just, you know, I mean, I just never imagined that I would be in a civil rights movement, you know, I mean, I when I saw that, but I read somewhere that every 50 years, every 50 years, like there's 50 years ago, and then there's all this upheaval and then things settle. And then 50 years later, people have sort of forgotten. This is, I can't remember who said this, but the 1920s are really bad. Yeah. And then around,
Huh.
So if I live long enough.
Here we are. I know, right?
Again, I don't want
to. My daughter was saying too, that, you know, people ask the question, what would I have done? Oh my goodness, what would I have done? I don't know what I would have done back then. And she's like, yeah, you do, because this is it.
Yeah.
It's exactly what you're doing now in the midst of this movement.
Yeah.
Is what you would have done then, because we're here.
Yeah.
Another, you know, historic place.
Yeah. So, and you have, 2 of your kids are musicians. Is that right?
Yes.
Yes. And, so how are they feeling about that now?
About being musicians?
Yeah. In this era.
Yeah. So Morgan is a jazz guitarist and he's with the band Butcher Brown. That's the youngest. And so they're touring and doing stuff. And I think they're in that genre where they're pretty much accepted. Their audiences are a whole bunch of people.
Touring right now?
No, they weren't. They were supposed to go to Asia, but I mean, they do it all the time. So their audiences, they've gone to England many times. They go to Europe and Switzerland and Denmark, and they play all these concerts. And of course, their audiences are quite diverse.
Yeah.
Naima said the other day that she's a violinist and working on her doctorate in conducting. She wants to be a conductor at Catholic. Wonderful. And she was saying the other day, a couple of weeks ago, she had to play a wedding, and it was at the Confederate Chapel.
Oh my!
Which I know. She didn't know it. One of her friends had booked it. Of course, they do it all the time. Yeah. And she and another friend of hers, who's a cellist and also African American. They just thought, so they did it. Of course, they weren't going to back out. And
at the last moment.
And then was it last week? She did one at a plantation. And she said, you know, done. She said, I think I'm just going to put a statement out and say, I'm not going to play in the plantations anymore.
Yeah.
So that's a difference. I mean, and not that you wouldn't have felt strange before, or you wouldn't, it would be your most favorite place to play. But that's a shift. That's where I think people are feeling the same way that the white supremacists and the bigotry and all of that kind of stuff, those people feel empowered, that we also feel empowered in a different way, which I think is kind of neat.
That's positive, yeah. So let's go back to discussing a little bit about your singing and your championing of African American composers,
including you.
Yes, I appreciate that. Yeah. So I'll just, like, a slight tangent. I mean, like, all of a sudden, it's like all these people are looking for Black composers. It's like, you know, they're trying to fill in the blanks. So I'm jumping on it.
Hey, and that's another really positive thing. You know, we're looking at courses and you're thinking, wow, so the ideas that maybe you had before, teaching, I'm going to teach a course at Longwood, and Longwood is an interesting place. It's in Farmville, Virginia. Okay. And Farmville is where the Moton High School is, where that was one of the cases that was cited in Brown versus Board of Education. It happened right there. The kids had an uprising, and it's the only civil rights movement, if you will, or any sort of movement that was started by someone under the age of 21.
Wow.
They were started by teenagers at the high school.
I had no idea.
The Moton High School. So they contacted, Thurgood Marshall, and ended up being one of the 3 cases that was that formed Brown versus Board of Education. But anyway, I'm teaching, developed a course, and I'm teaching a course, and I'm going to get you to participate as well, on exploring African American voices through poetry, spirituals, opera arias, etc., through the lens of African American composers. And so that's going to go in the fall. Well, it was a great course anyway. They were all really excited about it. But now, even now, it changes what you're thinking. Maybe I'll find more protest songs, for instance, or whatever. It's going to have the kids will have a different perspective. Right? Because they're coming out of this movement or out of this time, and it's not going to stop. So, that'll still be going on. Right. There's another one that I'm co-teaching with a sculpture professor called Whose Art Is It Anyway? Art in the Age of Connectivity, right? So appreciation versus appropriation. So that's going to run in the spring. But again, we thought it was a great idea. We had a lot of good things that we were thinking up when we proposed it. Now that's even, you have more ideas, I guess I'm just saying. It's interesting how things morph. We haven't taught it yet. But here we are in a different place and time, almost, it seems. And so it affects how you see things, and then how the kids will be able to do their research. And part of the class in the fall is that they're going to have to interview composers. Right. One of them. Give them a list, and they're going to have to, come up with a thing to pick the composer's brain and figure out what their thoughts were, and what their ideas and what their concepts are. And what texts mean things, what happens in culture, all that kind of stuff. So
interesting.
It is. It
I keep staring at that painting behind you. Can you tell me about that? Because that's wonderful.
This is actually crewel. It's actually string.
Oh.
Yeah, it's embroidered.
Wow.
Oh. And my husband bought that, gave it to me one Christmas. And he had an artist. He was chair of the Black History Museum. And he had an artist, they had an art show, and this was a piece there. But it's all of its thread, except for the back. All of this is cool.
What's the name of the painting? Or the crewel work. Sorry.
It doesn't have it doesn't have a name.
Untitled. Yeah.
No. Unless it's on the back, I guess it could be.
Okay, but it's
but there's nothing there.
Yeah. Very cool.
It's really beautiful. All the gold thread and the gray and all of those stripes are,
fantastic.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, okay, so let's go back to the Steve Allen's piece. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
So he wrote that. That's based on, the opera is based on the love and the relationship between Paul Laurence Dunbar and his wife Alice. And there was a woman, and I forget, he had to choose one of the titles. There's a woman at Virginia Tech who wrote a book, and I don't remember her name. I'm sorry. One is Lyric of Sunshine and Shadows, and Lyrics of Sunshine and Shadows. He had to change the title a little bit. But that's what it is, and it chronicles. Stephen's a wonderful composer. He wrote the libretto and the sorry, my little things are on here. The libretto and the music, and quite powerful, you and even then through the lens now, this was Paul Laurence Dunbar, who was a tortured poet, in that he didn't enjoy having the mammy and the pappy, dialect poetry. He actually enjoyed writing deeper pieces, but those were not the pieces that he was rewarded for. And so that was always something that bothered him a great deal.
On one hand, I guess you have, the Zora Neale Hurston too. I think you can communicate a lot of deep things using that dialect. On the other hand, I think that the fact that I've sort of skirted with or sort of addressed this topic a little bit in a couple of interviews that I think that you should be able to communicate in whatever way you feel like you want to
Yes.
communicate, whatever that means, whatever words you want to choose. And
Right.
if there's self-hatred involved, that's one thing, which is hard to quantify. But if it's just, this is how I want to write and make music, whatever, this is what I want to do. And he died very young as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and that's true. Maybe even now, in this it's just so interesting to see, to me,
mm-hmm.
how everything can change, or everything has changed, and then we haven't thought about everything. We haven't encountered everything yet. But
Right.
when you think about that, so yeah, maybe dialect now, because there's more of an equality, whereas before it could be viewed as a diminishing
mm-hmm.
of one's education or one's
Sure.
Intellect or
Yeah.
something. Now you're right. Maybe it could be viewed as simply an extension of folklore.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
And people can express themselves. However, it's just hard for us and our parents and grandparents who worked so hard to prove themselves worthy in a culture that told them they were not.
Right.
Then that's why the dialect and things like that would have a negative connotation. Maybe they won't now. So that's an interesting point.
Yeah. I mean, I suppose it's hard enough for humans to accept themselves if they've been abused. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
If you've been told that they were worthless, and then you spend all this time trying to gain the favor of the person who told you you were worthless, and then you realize that they never had the right to tell you that in the first place, and their opinion really means nothing.
That's right. But they had no power.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, yeah, but I mean, it's a difficult mindset to overcome, and I understand that idea of like trying to okay, here's the standard. If we're like this, then we'll be okay. And these people are holding us back because they're not like this. So let's be like this. And then you realize, oh, wait, I'm still a black X or Y.
Right. Exactly.
It doesn't matter what I do or say. I'm still a black X or Y.
Exactly.
But anyway.
And not so much to impress them, but just to raise yourself up, because you think, okay, so education. Okay, well, we can get that. And that was a big thing for so long, and we did that. But even so, it didn't matter, like you said.
Well, anyway, this is a lovely piece. So let's play some of it, or all of it. It's pretty short. So let's see.
Yeah.
Okay, if I can.
I may not be certain of how I feel, but dear God, someday I just know I will. I do believe He will offer me from the throne. I could learn to love Him. To be happy, how I so yearn to be loved. Till dawn I need that in some unknown tomorrow I thought will find
I was thinking I should have held it like this so they could see your face.
Oh,
yeah, because you were emoting. You were emoting wonderfully.
Yes, it's beautiful. And they can look at YouTube. There's a little bit of a delay, so you couldn't hear all the beautiful orchestra, the chamber ensemble behind it. So I encourage people to go and listen. Naima was the concert master for that. In fact, she did all of the performances for the number of years that we, did it. The excerpts, because Stephen was a doctor. He was working on his master's in composition when I was working on my doctorate there. Okay. And so his area of focus was stage. And so he would need to present it as part of his grade. So we started doing Act 1. That was a big thing. And we did that at Ward Hall at Catholic. And so she came, she did it. And then he'd added the second act, and we'd done that. And I think he's done the third, but I haven't.
So it's said 3 years ago. So that was just like when he just had the first act 3 years ago.
So that was, I believe he had the first and second, but we did excerpts. So he has one that's called The Poet, which was done at Dunbar High School. Oh, that's what that was in DC. Yeah, the new high school. Exactly. And so, and the gentleman from Ohio was doing a documentary on Paul Laurence Dunbar and came across this opera, and he thought, oh my gosh, I've got to include that. And so that's what he did in the documentary.
That's gorgeous.
Yeah. It really is. It's lovely. So go listen to it. It's on YouTube, you all.
The whole thing, or just the excerpts?
Different things. There's also the Greg who played Paul. There's some excerpts. If you look at Stephen's page, I'm pretty sure he's got them on there.
Okay, so Stephen Allen. Go check out Stephen Allen. Stephen M. Allen on YouTube, and it's called, say the title again, Sunshine and Shadow.
Lyrics of Sunshine and Shadow.
Lyric of Sunshine and Shadow.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. You'll see it. Right. It's quite beautiful.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And that's something else when you get to work with your child. You get to see her doing her thing.
Yes, absolutely. It's really beautiful.
Yeah. Does he have a prospect for having the whole piece performed, or I guess he has to finish it first?
I think he's done. He may have finished it by now. And he, I know that they did some, I don't know if they did the whole thing, but they did some things at Morgan State.
Okay.
Their opera workshop, and it's really quite beautiful. It really is. And Brandy Sutton was at Catholic, so she and I were the sisters. Alice, and she was my sister Leela. So it was really quite nice. It's just beautiful. He did a great job setting the text. It's very intuitive. Yeah.
So do you have other exciting things coming up related to just anything in general?
Gosh, I don't even know.
I mean, it's such a weird time. Yeah,
it is, because everything, I
mean, because there are people who are working on projects and they're kind of like they got stopped at a certain point, but they had these things in the works. And I mean, do you have anything like that going on, or?
No, I don't think so. We're always doing things at the Moten, which is nice. I can always do things at Longwood, and I'm trying to do things in conjunction with them.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's the jazz concert that we were talking about, or I've done spoken word with the jazz, read poems.
Wow.
I did Rita Dove, and I've done Langston Hughes, and, different people while the group's playing behind me. And that's
is that on YouTube too? I'd love to see that.
We didn't record it, but we should. That was one of the things that we said we should do more of this, because it would really go off well. The Moten has a large community banquet, because many of the students, of course, still live in the community. And so they would raise money, and they have scholarship funds and other things to help the museum. And so they would have us play, and I would choose a poem that was pretty cool, or two. And that went off. And so he said, we should do one of these, on campus. So, and then we done a couple during celebrations at the high school, which is, I hope you get to come visit sometime. It's really quite special to see it. Yeah.
Because I mean, like most educators who are looking at next semester, I mean,
no, we're still waiting to hear,
Yeah.
it's quite interesting first of all, to adapt, which we did. We know that we can teach online if we have to. But the ensembles and music, it's quite different. We just don't know all of those guidelines. There have been some that have been released, but it's really hard. How do you have the social distancing with ensembles, with a choir?
Or an orchestra.
Yeah. So I think the Richmond Symphony might be doing things where or orchestras, as Naima was saying, they're changing repertoire. So they can be maybe a little bit more chamber oriented, or you can choose things where different parts of the orchestra might take the stage and not
the whole,
but I mean, that's really hard. I don't know if anyone knows. It's such a different place to be in.
And you have to,
no precedent.
And being backstage also, I mean, like, I suppose the people wait in their cars until it's time to come in.
Yes.
You know,
I thought about that, but and then you've got to go, we're looking at Longwood. The recital hall will have to now be the place where you would teach your general ed courses. Because you can't spread out. They were in the classrooms, which are large enough.
Yeah.
Now you can't spread out enough. So now it becomes a space thing.
Yeah.
Some people are foregoing the ensembles altogether. Churches, we don't know what the churches are going to do. Some of them are going to start back up, maybe without choir. Yeah. Or maybe with small groups.
I'm a church musician, actually. So where
what are you all doing?
There's no singing. What I've been doing is, we've been online, and the protocols are that because singing is super spreaders.
Yes.
So I'm playing music, prelude. We haven't come back yet, but the idea is that, play some prelude music, play some communion music, and then I'm planning to pre-record anthems, as I've been doing all summer. So that while they're preparing the host, then there can be some connection to the people who are actually in the church, or some connection to, not just not that the organ is a bad thing, but you know what I mean? Some variety. Yeah.
Something else. Yeah. And so you've been bringing your choir to record.
I've done a couple virtual choirs. I've learned things I never thought I'd learn. So just people send in the parts and I sync them as best I can and put it all together. And I don't have the technology for all the boxes where you see all the people singing at once, but I mean, it's kind of intriguing. It's kind of a lot of work. I mean, there's a learning curve. I don't mind learning something new, and I don't regret having to learn that particular thing, but it certainly wasn't on my radar at any point. But
I didn't know how they did that. I've seen some of them, and I thought, how did they get that so perfect?
Well, because because they're not all singing at the same time. It's just and I think we have a program that allows you to have all the different people in the different boxes. But
I see, and you can line them up.
Right. Yeah. Just synchronize them. That's why they're usually things that are metronomic, if you notice.
Yes. True.
But,
True.
But there are people who have way more expertise than I do on that score. But yeah, it's a weird and interesting time. And what can you say? You just keep on keeping on, right? I mean, what else are you gonna do?
Yeah. And one of the colleges in our area they're gonna allow the freshmen and the seniors to come to college, to come to the campus.
Interesting.
And then the sophomores and the juniors will have to be online.
So everybody has their own dorm room then, I guess, if they have.
Right. I think that's how they're addressing the social distancing thing, that they can keep everyone safe, because they wouldn't have, where else would they send them?
But I mean,
allow everyone to come to the campus. Then you're not able to have enough extra rooms to.
But I mean, do you schedule your showers? Because I'm saying
right. I mean, and of course, a lot of them probably have them. They might have them in their rooms now, or the quads. Oh. Many of them are apartment rooms.
Okay.
So I guess they can talk to one another. But whereas you were going to have 4, maybe you wouldn't. I don't know. We haven't heard yet. But I mean, all of that is just different. So I thought that was. So they're going to bring the freshmen because they need to be on campus. That would be really hard for them to start school remotely. They don't know about that.
Right.
And the seniors need to be to make sure that they can, do their best and complete their study for graduation. So I thought that was interesting.
Yeah.
Good idea.
I mean, everybody, it's like, Kiana said that as she's gotten older, she realizes that adults are just flying by the seat of their pants most of the time too. So that's exactly what that is. It's like,
Exactly.
yeah, let's do this. And nobody knows how it's going to work out, but
Right.
what are you going to do?
I mean, there's no precedent. And
Right.
then we were talking, and this is in music. I mean, I don't know what the theater people, what do they do in theater departments? For
just
instance?
A whole bunch of Zoom. But that's the thing. Like, how do you interact with your acting partner? I mean, you all have to be quarantined for 2 weeks, and then you start rehearsals. Because I was just wondering, like, when will there be a next season of television? There was a Saturday Night Live skit where they had the people covering themselves with saran wrap as they were doing like this soap opera. That was way back when that was still funny, like early in March.
Right.
You know, but I'm saying, like, what the stories will be completely different if told at all. It's quite
right. I mean,
anyway.
It's interesting. The ballet. I mean, you just look at everyone just literally shutting down until January, and then you wonder what does it look like in January,
because nothing's really being done to address it. It looks like they're just kind of doing the Brazil Bolsonaro, like, well, let's just pretend it's not happening and see what happens. And let the most vulnerable die or get sick. Or, I mean, my daughter was saying, Kiana was saying that she saw something that I don't know. Well, the thing is, we don't know what the infection rate is necessarily because the testing, you'd have to know, you know, just really, really have a good idea. And we are making it more difficult to have that baseline by saying, okay, we'll slow down the testing. But I don't know. This too shall pass, one way or the other, I guess. You know, I never wanted to live in an interesting time like this. I have to be quite honest.
You have dreamt this up.
No.
I mean, you could not have.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, exactly.
So I don't know. How about you? Are you doing your projects? What projects are you pushing?
I find that I have been so ridiculously busy. It's just crazy because, I mean, my living room has become not only a TV studio, but a recording studio, because I'm recording all this, not only for the church, but just different, Louise Chopin. I recorded accompaniments with the idea that hopefully we'll do this premiere of this music virtually that I wrote for her. Yeah, but well, not ideal, but I mean, that looks like the way. And I sent her this other piece that hopefully, she'll be able to record virtually. But I mean, like, yeah, I've been asked to send to another opera company who were looking for, again, music by African Americans, or they had more diverse, women, African Americans, LGBTQ. Yes. So I'm recording that, and then I was asked to do a video course for some place in it's based in Italy, so I'm gonna have to figure out how to do that. So it's just like I'm doing all these things remotely, which works well for me in my particular situation. I mean, my son is as you know, on the autism spectrum, and it makes it a little bit easier for me to not have to worry about what happens with him if I have to go somewhere,
Of course.
But
and his art projects, his art is so beautiful. Is he still creating?
Yes,
he's able to do that at home.
Yeah, he's gotten a few commissions, and that was going to be the next phase of his life anyway. So yeah, the hope. That's the hope. So
wow.
Yeah, everything is up in the air, but it's landing. I guess you just, as I say, you got to just keep keeping on, try to figure it out as you go along. As I said, we're all flying by the seat of our pants, no matter how old we are. So it's what
it's interesting. And there's, and then you're looking at all of the, here in Richmond with the statues, and that's a huge thing. And the protests are still going on, know.
Yeah.
I do think it's different. I just think that the young people are just not going to have it. Now, whether the legislation will follow, get bogged down, but I think they're going to have to do something, because I think they know they'll be voted out. I think they're going to be very active young people.
Yeah.
And they're the ones that have to kind of carry the mantle.
Yeah, and they're really doing it.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's encouraging.
Yeah.
Many fronts.
So be in touch in November.
Right. Everyone vote. It's very important.
Yeah.
Vote.
You got to do what you can. Yeah. Anyway. Well, thank you so much for giving me this time. And I'm so sorry we're confused.
No, I'm glad you still wanted to. I'm like, oh no.
Of course. Yeah, I was looking forward to it.
that you thought I even had anything to say. So.
Well, here's the thing.
Wonderful.
I was, and this will be my last small point, which is that, when I was asked to do something recently, and I had that exact same thing of like, I'm not eminent like these people.
Right.
Why are people asking me? What do I know? And then, but then I thought, when you have raised kids, and this wasn't my number one ambition in my life, it wasn't like I was like, oh, I can't wait till I'm a mom, although I love my children. But you know what?
Right.
My first identity was, oh, I love music, and
yes.
that sort of thing. And that there's things that, whether you mommy track yourself on purpose or not, you will be in some way on a mommy track.
Mm-hmm.
But, so I said, that's not an easy thing to do, that going through and raising children who you can be proud of, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And who you feel,
good people.
So, yeah. So I'm saying, I'm not going there with the self-deprecation as much anymore. Cause I'm like, I think I've been spending my time in a positive way. And whether that means that I have done X or Y, whatever,
Yeah.
So don't think that you haven't done anything. You have done a lot. So there.
Thank you.
There you go. Okay. So, and
wonderful.
Yeah. And even without the kids, honestly, you've done, you're champion of these works and composers and things that you were doing to try to move the ball or move the needle.
It's important work.
Amen.
Absolutely.
And you're doing it. So there.
Thank you. You as well. Thank you.
Okay, I'll try not to, like I was like, yeah. But
no, you do.
We all try. We all try.
Right.
Yes. Right. And that's all we can do. So on that note of self and mutual uplift,
yes.
I will say have a wonderful day, and thank you so much
for
spending the time, Lisa.
Thanks, Maria.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.